It started with a flicker, August 6, 2025. A quiet, sterile hum inside a data center. Nothing seemed unusual, until the James Webb Space Telescope entered emergency override mode. Not because of a dying star, nor a collapsing black hole, but because of something closer. Something that shouldn't exist. An object catalogued as 3I Atlas. At first, astronomers assumed it was another harmless traveler from the deep, an interstellar drifter, cold, slow, and predictable. But as Webb's sensors locked on and the first data streams arrived, the numbers didn't just surprise scientists, they terrified them. The chemical profile defied every known natural process. Ratios twisted into grotesque values. Elements that shouldn't coexist appeared side by side. It wasn't just a comet anymore. It was a question. A question whispered through static. What if this thing wasn't born, but built? The first warning, the first anomaly appeared in the coma, the thin halo of gas surrounding the object. At nearly 6 astronomical units from the Sun, it should have been dormant, frozen solid. But 3I Atlas was already awake, erupting violently. Instead of water vapor, Webb detected massive outflows of carbon dioxide, 8 times stronger than water emissions. For comparison, even the interstellar visitor Borisov never exceeded 0.5. This one reached an impossible 8-to-1 ratio. Worse still, the gas cloud was unnaturally clean, no dust, no fragments, no debris. Just a smooth, perfectly regulated emission. It looked controlled. As if someone, or something, had designed it to behave that way. Then came the metals. The nickel signature spectrographic scans revealed strong, consistent nickel lines in the ultraviolet and near-infrared. Not faint traces, but dominant, repeating peaks. And yet, something vital was missing: iron. In every meteor, asteroid, or comet ever studied, nickel and iron are bound together. Always. 1 part nickel to 15 parts iron, without exception. Until now. 3I Atlas broke the rule. Nickel overwhelmed iron at a ratio of 40-to-1. No known natural process could do that. Separating those metals in a lab requires energy, precision, and intent. And this thing, floating alone in the cold void, was doing it effortlessly. The motion that shouldn't be soon after, ground-based observatories noticed something even stranger. 3I Atlas wasn't coasting through space, it was accelerating. But not from solar radiation, not from outgassing, and not from gravity. The acceleration was rhythmic, fluctuating every 7.2 hours. Like a heartbeat. Every brightening matched that same interval, perfectly timed. Natural tumbling doesn't do that. This was deliberate, mechanical, almost procedural. Its light curve was too exact to be random. It wasn't spinning, it was signaling. Some hypothesized a reflective sail, others a rotating array. But deep down, every astronomer studying the data reached the same quiet conclusion: this object was not behaving like a comet. It was performing like a craft. The James Webb override at 2:11 Greenwich Mean Time. Observatories sent an emergency alert to Webb's control room. Carbon dioxide emissions were skyrocketing, metallic readings were spiking, and the object's velocity curve made no gravitational sense. Minutes later, the emergency override was executed, a move so rare it's only been triggered a few times in Webb's lifetime. Every scheduled observation was cancelled. The telescope turned, locked, and focused all its instruments on the anomaly. The first wave of spectra came through. It wasn't the signature of ice and rock, it was industrial. Carbon ratios out of scale, metals isolated by design. The override hadn't just redirected a telescope. It had sounded an unspoken alarm. The cosmos had paused, because humanity had just found something made. The impossible elements in every stellar forge, nickel and iron, are born together. They are cosmic twins, formed in supernovae, fused by nature's laws. But 3I, Atlas, obeyed none of them. Iron was gone, completely gone. Nickel flooded the readings across multiple wavelengths, forming a profile no known comet could match. The only terrestrial analog would be nickel carbonyl, a compound created under high pressure in industrial reactors. Not in space. To reproduce it artificially, you'd need a foundry, not a frozen rock drifting through the solar system. The question became unavoidable: who built it? And why send it here? Ancient echoes. Historians noticed something chilling. Throughout human history, civilizations have spoken of metal that fell from the sky. Tutankhamun's dagger contained 11% nickel, impossible with ancient smelting. Babylonian texts described stars that bled metal, omens tied to destruction and rebirth. Those relics, rich in nickel and devoid of iron, mirror exactly the same chemical fingerprint Webb found in 3I, Atlas. Coincidence? Or continuity? What if those ancient fragments were not just meteorites, but remnants of something like this, something that had already passed once before? The code within. While decoding the thermal emissions, a researcher at Caltech found a rhythm, a faint, repeating frequency buried in the infrared data. When translated into sound, it wasn't noise. It was pattern, prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, and geometric ratios. The pulse matched mathematical constants found in DNA, crystal growth, even in ancient architecture. It wasn't communication. It was structure. A cosmic fingerprint. A code designed to be recognized, not heard. And the terrifying part? Earth wasn't the only one listening. The Earth responds within days. Ultra-low frequency pulses were detected deep within Earth's magnetic field. They came from multiple locations: Antarctica, Argentina, Australia, all synchronized to the same 7.2-hour cycle as 3I, Atlas. These weren't signals from above. They came from within. Something in Earth's core was resonating, like a memory being reawakened. The PATH-3I, Atlas's trajectory wasn't random. It threaded perfectly through gravitational wells, avoiding major bodies like a spacecraft following waypoints. When its path was run through orbital models used for engineered probes, it matched over 92% with human-made flight paths. Its projected destination? A corridor just beyond Saturn, a theoretical gateway into the outer heliopause. Except, it never left. The shutdown without warning, 3I, Atlas went silent. Emissions dropped to zero. Light curve, flat. Nickel lines, gone. Across the world, telescopes confirmed the same thing. The object had powered down. Not naturally faded, terminated. If it was a machine, maybe it had finished its task. If it was a message, maybe it had been received. The return. Then came the impossible. The object's course shifted, back toward the inner solar system. Its path now intersected the gravitational corridor between Earth and Venus, a zone known for electromagnetic interference. 3 global radar arrays confirmed the change. Something that should have drifted into deep space had instead turned back. The lunar response, a routine radar ping aimed at its coordinates, bounced, not from the object, but from the far side of the Moon. The signal returned early, distorted, modulated with the same pulse interval as 3I, Atlas. Records showed the same pattern once before, during the passage of Oumuamua in 2017. Now it had returned. Whatever 3I, Atlas was, it hadn't come to visit. It had come to activate. The final sequence. Weeks later, the Webb telescope resumed normal operations. But hidden in the deep field data, faint rhythmic flux appeared between galaxies, 7 pulses, then silence. Each aligned perfectly with the path of 3I Atlas. It wasn't broadcasting. It was triggering. A sequence. A countdown. And it had already begun. We once thought the silence of the universe meant peace. Now we know it only meant we hadn't been included, until something pressed unmute. Maybe this wasn't first contact. Maybe it's maintenance. Maybe 3I Atlas didn't arrive to explore us, but to awaken something already here. And if that's true, it's already too late to stop it. Because whatever it was meant to check, just passed the test. Subscribe for what comes next. Because the next visitor won't announce itself. It will just arrive. And when it does, we'll remember this one wasn't a warning. It was a diagnostic.